Dear friends, good afternoon. Today, what I'd like to share with you, I believe, are the things that everyone is following very closely to. And we know Hong Kong's government has announced the policy statement on the virtual assets. Why they are doing that, and what are the goals they are seeking. Yesterday, actually, we have invited two speakers, and also today we have invited Mr. Liang at present. So we have taken the views from the legal committees, from the Hong Kong government's perspective for the interpretation. So me personally, more take it from the market's perspective, more of the industrial practitioners' perspective. Why are they doing so? What are their goals in mind? And what kind of the opportunities that all of us can find out of it? Different perspective in its interpretation. First of all, we need to clarify why the Hong Kong government wanted to have this policy statement on the development of virtual assets. The origin of it, actually, we shall start from the digital economy. It all boils down to the very fact that they wanted to create a whole set of system that can adapt to the services that can support the digital economy's development in Hong Kong to prosper and grow further in Hong Kong. That is the very goal in mind. So what are the features of the digital economy? For me perspective, I believe that it concludes in the following three aspects. Of course, we can take it from different views, different layers. Firstly, it's not constrained by geographical space. It is because it's unbounded by the geographical spaces. Therefore, Hong Kong has the possibility to give the full play to its strength in one regime, two systems, the general laws, and the role as the free port. And people would say that Hong Kong has missed, the internet shall not miss blockchain. And we don't think there is such a thing as that Hong Kong has missed the internet. Actually, internet, in terms of geography, the spaces actually is deeply rooted in the places, in the local users. However, when it comes to Web3 or blockchain, has very limited relationship with such things. So Hong Kong didn't have an era for the internet, but Hong Kong can have this era of Web3 and the era of blockchain. And such eras will have the very special strength shown by Hong Kong as the free port. Not long ago, what it means by the free port, it means that the capital can be flow in and out freely. Our panelists have been sharing that the inbound and outbound flow of fiat money is both serving as a big barrier, a hampering factor for the mass adoption, but also a very important prerequisite for the mass adoption. And the next point is the common law. In Hong Kong, be Web3 or blockchain or virtual assets, they can really give their own play in terms of regimes, the strengthen the regime, strengthening legislation, and also really get rid of the constraints in its graphical spaces. And second point is that the digital economy is not constrained by the physical rules. For example, in metaverse, if you wanted to build a city or a building, it's not being constrained by the rule of law of forces. You don't need to calculate its gravity or not. And thirdly, it's not constrained by the commercial organizations. Digital economy has been the enabler to individuals, letting individuals being able to have the capacity so that you don't really need to rely on any organizations to be able to do a lot of things. You can work for yourself, but you don't necessarily need to rely on any other organizations. So apart from those features, what are the value proposition of digital economy? The rule of law for its value actually follows that it has high fixed cost and low, even zero, marginal cost. For it to develop a software, it requires very high fixed cost, huge investment. For example, if you want to develop GPT, OpenAI has spent, say, billions of USD to develop it. And also, if you wanted to upgrade it into GPT-4 or 5, it also requires another billions of USD for its investment. It's a very high fixed cost. Once developed, GPT, be 1 billion or 100 million users, the marginal cost is nearly zero. So this is something that the industrial economy didn't have. This is something that manufacturing industry, manufacturing economics that has been rampant in the past 2 centuries didn't follow. It didn't show its value in that way. Therefore, under this rule of law of the value, the digital services with the maximum value is about the open source without permission, without permits, so as to maximize the value. So with a nearly zero marginal cost products, the channel or pathway that can realize its biggest value shall be open source. Because you didn't add extra cost, marginal cost, if the volume of the user bases have been doubled or even increased multiple times. So the rights of use for a wider basis of people have become increasingly important. Digital economy, in another way we can put it, it's the economy of the rights to use. So the economy under the rights to use, how can we actually really capture its value? A permission-free, nearly free, and is also open source product. How can we really capture its value? The value capture machine for the rights to use shall be token. Token is the rights to use, say the access or permission to log on a certain system. So blockchain is more of the rights to use that has been standardized. I'd like to give a very typical example about the fax machine effect. Just imagine there is 1 million fax machine and weaving into a fax machine network. And for any individual customer who wanted to join this network of fax machine, do you need the permission from others? No, we don't need such permission, but you need to buy one fax machine. If you don't buy one fax machine, you couldn't possibly be joining a fax machine network. Once you bought this fax machine, you bought the access to attend on this network of fax machine, you are attaining the rights to use of fax machine. By buying Bitcoin, can you join the network of Bitcoin to use Bitcoin? You need to have a ETH to actually use Ethereum. Fax machine, Bitcoin, Ethereum are the same thing. It's about the rights to use, the permission to use. The permission to use the network and enjoy the value of the network. You have to have this token, a permission. One is digital, one is physical, but it works the same. So the fax machine network doesn't belong to the person who accesses and who buy the fax machine, just like Ethereum. The holder of ETH doesn't necessarily mean that you own the rights of Ethereum. You are only having the rights to use it. So, the rights to use, or the rights to use the fax machine, and such fax machine effects has give forth to a new kinds of, capital mechanisms called stakeholder. So everyone is using it, no one is owning it, and fax machine network has the third feature. Anyone, any incremental user to the existing network, for other users in the same network will bring new incremental value and strength to the network. other users. So one extra user joining the network, there will benefit other users having more possibilities to send out more messages through fax machine. So that it is the best strength of these rights to use. The more people using it, the more beneficial it will become. But if it's under the mechanism of ownership, then the ownership of one share of the stock, then the stock is belonging to you. The other person could possibly claim the ownership of the same stock. The rights to use can be, given out infinitely. The more it's being given out, the more value it will live up to. But it's unlike the ownership.
对，那么所以基于这样三个特点，我们可以看这个
Based on these three features,
比特区块链的实践，既看
the blockchain practice in the past decade is not only for the infrastructure establishment, which was touched upon in the panel discussion before the mass adoption. It can also be said that we spent 1 decade in building the financial infrastructure that serves the digital economy. We have summarized the three features of digital economy. The traditional financial infrastructure no longer meets the demand of the digital economy. In the past decade, we have established the infrastructures compatible to the digital twin. It is based on the distributed network, the Web3. On the distributed network, we have the new distributed ledger. And based on the ledger, we have built the distributed finance DeFi. And all of the mass adoption should be based on these financial infrastructures. And within the new financial infrastructure, there are several constituents. The first one is the new public ledger and the public account. And its main feature is that it is an open, transparent, and globalized ledger. Previously, all of the ledger are the private account. But for all of the account on blockchain, it is open for the whole community. And it is a global ledger system. Once you log on to the systems, everyone in the world can have access to that ledger and can touch the data and trade the data. This is what the traditional financial system is incapable of. Because you cannot search on the systems, then you cannot buy and trade. This is the first feature. The second one is that the traditional financial system is based on the banking systems. All of the cash flow goes through the banks. However, over the internet platform, we have the new generation internet account. We have the Alipay and WeChat payment and the wallet. And these two wallets are no longer under the control of the banks, but instead by the internet. However, there is also the fiat in that. For the blockchain ledger, we have different presentations of the account, but all of them are called the blockchain account, which is independent from the traditional and the banking account systems. And it is running on no longer the fiat currency. The latest one, USD and USDC, runs on the fiat currency. And in the coming future, maybe run on the CBDC. If the currency cannot run on the smart contract, they cannot be built in the blockchain account. Another change is that this new financial system have the new settlement. Trading, recognition, and the settlement and the clearance are done at the same time. The trading and the payment is done point to point. This new settlement for this new settlement, if you look at US, Hong Kong, and Singapore, there are banks issuing RWA, the tokenization of the real assets. So why tokenization of the real world asset? One feature widely acknowledged is the efficiency improvement and also simplified transaction. The forms of the currency in the new system also has been changed a lot. There has been the digital currency in the systems. There can be the CBDC. Issued by the central bank. And all of them are the basic currencies. They need the currency creation in the market to have the currency leverage to better serve the real economy. Then we have the stablecoin issued by the institutions. So the banking system is the main builder of the currency leverage. So this is like the MR in the macroeconomy. They are the currency created based on the leveraging. In Hong Kong, if you carry the paper note, then you can see the world payment with the note. This is from MR. And we also have the native coin, that is the Bitcoin. However, Bitcoin is still evolving in the shape and also in the function. We also have the new asset type, that is token. And we can classify them as the functional token and the security-based token. We spent 2 days talking about STO RWA. But for the future tokenization of the digital asset, 70% of them are the utility token rather than the STO token. We may have a part of the security-based token, but 70% of them are not. If you look at the US Congress, it is making some draft legislation. About 7 to 8 of them are relevant to the blockchain and the coin. And there has been a lot of discussion and even controversy. We have the bills from the Republicans and also the Democrats. they have different opinions, but one consensus reached is that
通过立法把主要的监管权力交给美国的商品期货委员
and the U.S. will delegate the power to the CFTC rather than SEC.
所以会有这一点上好像没有争议，是吧？参议院、众院、民主党、共和党都没有
For all of different parties, they have no difference on this opinion.
达成的共识，就是说这是虚拟商品。
So the consensus is that
主要的 token 应该
the main token, 70 to 80% of the token is the virtual commodity. So it goes to the CFTC.
这个是这个是一个我们去看通过这个反射过来或者反省过来看看，数字资产里面的大部分的
So for most of the digital assets, they are the utility token. We should well design the boundaries of the utility token. That can be very important.
最后当然还有一个就是这个新的金融基础设施里边。
For the new infrastructure, we have the new tools, or that is NFT. So that is the digital certificate to prove all of the virtual things. It can prove identity, working experiences, and also qualifications. I think you are familiar with that point.
那么接下来，在我介绍，在我去解读香港虚拟资产之前，还有几个问题要交代。
Then several points to clarify. The first one is at STO. In the eyes of the Hong Kong regulators, there are two types of STO. One is the shareholding token or the equity token. There is no longer IPO but STO. The second type is RWA. There is the investment portfolio for RWA. There can be the interest payment, interest rate, and interest payment. So in the eyes of Hong Kong regulators, they are in the category of STO. So within the category of STO, we basically issue them on the blockchain or the public ledger or the global public ledger. For the security token and the RWA, they are turned into the asset registered and issued over the public ledger, and their liquidity is supported worldwide. So we may not confine its liquidity within any boundaries. The second one is the stablecoin. This can be very important in all markets. It is not only the tool for trading, it is the connection of the real world and the virtual world. And also the connection of the real economy and the digital economy and the private ledger and the public ledger. It is also the connection of the bank account and the blockchain account. The fiat currency in the bank account is turned into the digital coin through the stable coin. And the connection of CeFi to DeFi to the connection of programmable to the programmable coin. For all of the regions, they all have their own stable coin based on their own currencies. Then about RWA. Based on our observation, the regulators in different countries are pushing forward the RWA as the tokenization. We have the real-world asset, cash flow asset, and also the banking asset, and they want to use the method of tokenization to reach to get the liquidity support from the global market.
With the global liquidity, it shall be issued on top of the public ledger globally, not possibly on the private chain or private ledger. And as we are talking about RWA, what I'd like to say is that RWA 80% and above market share is not about the centralized exchanges. It's the intermediary market, it's interbank market. They were issued by those traditional institutions and executed in terms of the exchanges, interbank, intermarket. So it seems as if that all of the stock exchange across the globe have tried to set up a centralized or standardized security market, but none of which have successfully in doing that. Why? RWA or similar things, those fixed income things doesn't necessarily apply to the centralized or standardized way of transaction. It shall be peer-to-peer transaction. It shall be up to the transaction relationship and the trust level between the two parties. Even though you are buying and selling the same security or bonds, and the goodwill, the reputation of the transaction parties, and it shall be different in terms of the quotes, according to the trust, according to the reputation of the parties, etc. You couldn't possibly mix them up within a machine. It's highly unlikely to achieve that or are suitable to be transacted in an exchange. That is my view. Then, after clarifying that, at least we know that the Hong Kong government has made its declaration is very well, very solid, very well established. And the policy goal for the Virtual Asset Center, International Virtual Asset Center in Hong Kong, is not just to set up a transaction market. They were having a more ambitious goal. They wanted to really use tokenization and find blockchain, Web3, virtual assets, and other things. How can they really serve real economy, support innovation, tech development, support financial center for further upgrades. This is what is in their mind. In order to realize that, find something that can support and upgrade financial center service to the real economy, we shall not only having secondary market. It means that we shall not only having the exchange for virtual assets. International Virtual Asset Center in Hong Kong shall have 4 layers in its structure to become a complete financial system. First layer, of course, first and foremost, it shall have a very active secondary market. That is, it shall have very active transaction, on top of which we shall have a primary market for issuance of the new digital assets or issuance of new virtual assets. Through primary market, the issuance, the financing can be there to support real economy, to support the tech innovation, to build up a new or higher level, more advanced version of financial system, financial market. If without that, Hong Kong's declaration on that will be discounted in its value. without a very effective secondary market, with the issuance market, then the third layer for this international center shall be a centralized industrial service, because service to issuance, service to transaction require a huge amount of organizations, practitioners, and service providers. Therefore, we will form a new type of industry of virtual assets. First of all, it will solve the problems of employment, and it will provide taxations and get the business activities moving. Not just so, because of these previous three layers. Therefore, the ecosystem of Web3 or Web 3.0's industrial ecosystem will be built upon the center city for virtual assets. And the city has this virtual asset center, then Web3 industry will seek its route here. We have seen a number of the Web3 projects going to the Science Park in Hong Kong, settle there because of the ecosystem. Core technologies will be the primary and secondary market with a good market there. And also we have the startup entrepreneurs in Web3 and blockchain there. They may not necessarily be the real expert of blockchain. They may be an expert in gaming industry. So they need third-party tech support by designing a very good economics model to support its logics of its businesses. It requires the professionals, the know-how, etc. So this is how the industry is formed in the modern times. This is the four layers of its structure, on top of which actually we are seeing that the Hong Kong International Financial Center 2.0 version is in brewing. 1.0 version, the core pillar of which is the stock market in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's International Financial Center were working on two wheels. One is the center for the pillar for international trades, and that has been hampered by recent years, not just about the COVID-19, but also the foreign trade shrinking in volume, and naturally the shrinking of the foreign trade in Hong Kong, because all of Hong Kong's trading is the transfer trading. And with that, we are seeing the industry is going downward. So the other wheel that Hong Kong is built upon, all of the service providers to the industry, to the trading, the volume is shrinking at the same time. Of course, its importance have been downgraded at the same time with the volume shrinking. So put it aside, if we only talk about 1.0 version, the fundamentals of its regime is the shareholders' capitalism. In a stock exchange, the fundamentals of it is the shareholder capitalism, and on top of which we have this corporate regime to actually fixate the rights and interests of the shareholders. So this is a market of ownership. We have make it standardized of this ownership into stocks and get listed in this exchange, get transaction in this exchange. This is the 1.0 version of International Financial Center in Hong Kong. They will be there forever because the corporate system will be there forever. However, the newly born changes brought forth by the digital economy, as I said, the basis for the regime has been disrupted from shareholder into staking holder. There has been a big change in the staking hold. It doesn't necessarily using the shareholding regime to fixate or to determine everyone's stake. So long as it's staking hold, all of the participants all can use or even more conveniently use the open source organization or non-for-profit organizations. The non-for-profit organization, open source organizations, it all in its nature is an organization focused on the rights of youth. So they have been make it into a standardized approach. So this is the tokenization of virtual asset market in Hong Kong. So this declaration by Hong Kong government is something that is about the positioning as the international financial center, the upgrading of its functions, and also about its urbanization. Upgrading and economic transformation is not something only about financial market. It's not only about setting up the exchange or the license issues to the exchange so that people can sell and buy Bitcoin. It's not like that. It's only part of the value is showcased. Maybe after 5 years, it may not necessarily be the mainstream value we seek to demonstrate. So that's all about it. As the organizer of the event, I'd like to take this occasion as the last speaker to really thank you for participation, either our speakers, panelists, and all the audiences. Thank you so much for coming. I'm much looking forward to next year's. Seeing you next year.